Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And this one's a bit of a weird one. There's an Indian doctor. He's claiming that he can do something that's never been successfully done before, something that on its only one other time it was even attempted ended with the death of the patient, and something which I think he has a complete lack of understanding of how human bodies work, which is not a good thing to do if you're a doctor. Anyway, he says he can transplant a womb into a man so that the man can have a baby. I think he's more of a plumber and a bit of a cowboy at that. Let's have a look at this article. He calls himself a surgeon. I think that's probably a very strong word. But nonetheless, we'll go through it. Indian surgeon plans to transplant womb into a trans woman or man in world first op that could pave the way for biological men to get pregnant. Not the world's first op, world's second op. It's been done before, failed, but been done before. Dr. Narendra Kaushik, I hope that's pronounced correctly, plans to do the op at Gender Reassignment Clinic in New Delhi. Only one documented case of a womb ever being inserted into a biological man, but it was fatal, and impregnating trans women with a new womb has never been done. It was done back in the 30s, but they didn't understand basic biochemistry in the 30s. And so mistakes were made, nothing happened, and the patient died. He also fails to understand basic biochemistry, but we'll get to that. A surgeon in India will attempt to transplant a womb into a man, a trans woman who was born a man, with the view to making them pregnant. The risky procedure will involve taking the reproductive organs from a dead donor or a patient who has transitioned the other way and has had theirs removed. There has only been one documented case of a womb being inserted into a trans woman in the past, but she died from complications just months later. Quite a famous case, actually, but I think it was the world's first actual post-op trans man who'd become a woman. Impregnating a trans woman would be an even bigger feat. I think the word they're looking for is impossible, but I'll come to that. And would require the use of IVF and a C-section because they do not have a fully functioning vagina. No, say it ain't so. They don't have a vagina. At the best, they have a scar. Dr. Narendra Kaushik, who runs the Gender Reassignment Clinic in New Delhi, has said he's very, very optimistic he can make a success of the procedure. He's thinking of the money. Every transgender woman wants to be as female as possible. Every transgender woman or man wants to be as female as possible. Well, they are as female as they're ever going to be, i.e. they're male. They'll never be female. They're born male, they will die male, and every day of their life they'll be male, and it will screw with their tiny little minds. And that includes being a mother. You can never be a mother. You're going to be a father who's had an operation and who wears a dress. The way towards this is with a uterine transplant, the same as a kidney or any other transplant. No, completely not the same. Because a kidney will go in, a kidney is small, and it sits, and they put it in. Basically, 9 times out of 10, they'll put a kidney next to or above the damaged kidney. They don't actually tend to take the damaged kidney out. This is not the same as implanting a uterus, because it's a lot bigger. It needs a lot more connectivity. You have to join it not just to the blood flow and to the nerves, but to the endocrine system, into the lymph system. It's a lot more complicated. This isn't just whipping out somebody's kidney and sticking it into somebody new. The surgeon has not revealed the recipient or given a timetable for the surgery, but he added, "We have our plans and we're very optimistic about this." He's a hack. Womb transplants cost around $50,000, and just one cycle of IVF treatment can cost upwards of 5,000. Dr. Kushik's clinic, Olmec, is at the centre of a booming industry in New Delhi that is seeing the city rival Bangkok as the sex change capital of the world. And I always laughed at the fact that the sex change capital of the world was Bangkok. He said around a fifth of his customers are from abroad, with many flying from the UK, where gender reassignment surgery is free on the NHS, but shouldn't be, but subject to waiting times. It should not be on the NHS, it's elective. The NHS should not be there for elective surgery. Many of our patients tell us that their sexual partners don't even notice that they weren't born with female sex organs. Dr. Koshik lied to the paper. And that's our aim, to make it so that they live as normal a life as possible as a woman. Let me tell you now, there's not a case of a sex change man becoming a woman that you don't know it's not a man. There are so many clues. Big manly hands, the Adam's apple. For 99% of them, it's the huge testicles and penis in the pants. While gender reassignment surgery is well established, the science behind womb transplants involving trans people is still murky. There have been more than 100 successful woman-to-woman uterus transplants since 2014, and scientists are now able to impregnate female recipients. Massive operation. But what you're effectively doing is taking an old uterus out and putting a new uterus in. So you're connecting it to the parts that are still there that remain from the old one. See, what you're not doing is taking the engine out of a Porsche and putting it into a Mini. You can probably do it, but the work involved is horrendous. But you can swap an engine from one Porsche to another Porsche reasonably quickly. Anyway, there are many more hurdles to scale when it comes to inserting a female's reproductive organs into a biological man. Tons. Absolute tons. And it isn't just the surgery. As far as medical records show, the procedure has only been attempted once in history, when Danish trans artist Lily Elba had the operation in 1931. She was the first, he was the first trans op recipient, had the old bits cut off and a wee little tuck put in with a scar, you know. Still a man. And he had this operation and then he died. And that's what happens when you do stupid things because of your mental illness. Doctors say advances in medicine mean it's now theoretically possible for a trans woman to give birth after a womb transplant. No, it's not. The sticking point is that only people born female can make eggs. No, not only people born female can make eggs. Only females can make eggs. And here's actually the really weird thing. Females don't make eggs. Their mothers make eggs. Okay? If this newspaper is going to do a piece on biology, it'd be good if they did any. Women don't make their own eggs. Women make their daughters' eggs. When a woman is born, when a female baby is born, inside that baby are all the eggs she's ever going to have. Those eggs form as the embryo forms. The mother creates the eggs for her own grandchildren. Technically, when a woman is pregnant, she's carrying her own grandchildren. Weird, isn't it? So women don't make eggs. Men make sperm on a regular basis, ladies. But women don't make eggs. So the newspaper's full of it anyway. Which means it is not... Now the next line, right? The next line is horrendous. This is the level of journalism, and this is where we're at. So I'm going to go back to that previous line. The sticking point, and we've already addressed it. The sticking point is that only people born female can make eggs. We know that's not true. Which means it is not possible for a woman to get pregnant naturally. I'm going to point to, I don't know, 3 billion years of evolution and say that line is false. I think what they mean is it's not possible for a man to get pregnant naturally. These people are just trying to push an agenda at all times and they get it so wrong, so often it's funny. So doctors who attempt it will need to use IVF. when the eggs are fertilized outside the body and then inserted. In 2017, Dr. Paulson, president of the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, said there would be additional challenges, but I don't see any obvious problem that would preclude it. I think it would be possible. I completely agree. Surgically, you could possibly put a womb into a man. The trouble is keeping it in there. You'd have to use massive amounts of immunization drugs. That in itself is a problem, because you then opened up to every other infection, and so chances are that you'll become very, very ill. Too ill for, in fact, the IVF, because you can't do IVF if you're ill. Then there's the possibility that you could certainly take an egg and fertilize it outside the body and inject it in, but then you hit the hurdles. So, okay, you've put a womb in a man and you've put a fertilized egg in a man. What are you hoping for? That the egg will sit in there and just magically embed? Because the womb will reject the egg if it doesn't contain the mother's DNA. So you could argue, okay, well, we'll take the eggs from the mother whose womb. Okay, you've magically got those eggs. But wait, you've rejected and filled this body with all these drugs to stop it rejecting the womb. So one problem doctors face is that the male pelvis would not allow a baby to pass through it because it's too narrow, so the man would have to give birth by caesarean section. Fine, go ahead, take that. But there is room inside a man to hold a womb. Again, this is a problematic thing because a woman's body is biologically different from a man's. Men have got prostates, and where the prostate sits is where you'd like to put the womb. You need the prostate, and whilst it's very, very useful for making sperm, that is not the only function. So how are you going to maneuver the prostate out the way? Limited room. I will also point out that men have different urethras because testicles. It's all very complex. You'd have to move a lot more stuff around. Then, as the baby grows, the mother's body has, how we put this, evolved so that the organs will rise and move and shift. Men haven't evolved that. So there's going to be another issue. Anyway, that's just even more of the issues. He said hormones might have to be given to replicate changes that go on while a woman is pregnant. Once the uterus has been transplanted, the IVF embryo would have to be implanted. Currently in the UK, it would be illegal for an IVF clinic to create an embryo for the purpose of implanting it in a man under the Human Fertilization and Embryology Act 2008 because it's unproven technology, unproven safe. It would effectively be killing an embryo as a result of an experiment, which is illegal. Not to say they can't die, but you can't do it as an experiment. Major complications, moving down, just a little bit of history of things there we're not going to bother about. Major complications suffered by recipients include organ rejection. This is by people who are women and had a womb inserted. Major complications suffered by women who've had this operation include organ rejection, urinary tract infections, blood clots and internal bruising. And this is all because of the drugs they're given, the anti-immune drugs, so they're open to infection. And if you get a urinary tract infection, you will not be implanted because they can't implant you with a urinary tract infection because it travels up the uterus. It will just dissolve everything that's in there, so it'll be a waste. Adverse side effects of immunosuppressants, drugs used to reduce the risk of body rejecting the order, may also lead to other precautions. Womb transplants are predominantly performed with the use of a womb donated from a living woman, although modern organ freezing techniques have made it possible to use it from deceased's. The first baby born, who had been carried to term in a womb transplanted from a dead donor in Cleveland, Ohio in 2019. And a little bit of a thing there. It's an 11-hour operation. And it's incredibly it's an 11-hour operation and massively damaging to the woman. It's impossible for a man. And I'm going to tell you why. I will come up and I will tell you why. Right. So I did say that I will explain one of the main issues you have. Um, I will begin by saying that I have got qualifications in biology, in cellular biology, in microbiology. I have done, as part of my degree, I've done reproductive biology, reproductive chemistry. I know a little. I'm not an expert. Don't claim to be an expert, but I've done studies on it, and I have got formal academic qualifications to a limited degree. No pun intended. But I've also done like my own personal studies in evolution, part of which would be cellular evolution, things like that. So I do come from a background of having some knowledge. Now, like I say, I'm not the expert, but it does mean that I can explain a little bit about why this isn't going to work. When a woman gets pregnant, her body ought, and yet doesn't, reject the egg because it's not her. Now, if any other sort of organism came into the body, the immune system would go, "Oh, look, an invading DNA! Quick, get the energy, get the antigens on it, get the leukocytes out, fight that infection, fight that disease, fight that germ, fight whatever it is," and that's what they do. But not a baby. Why does a fertilized egg sit, implant into the womb, and the woman's body not reject it? Now, it's not that the egg's got the mother's DNA, because it's only got half the mother's DNA, or maybe half. Because don't think that DNA is like split 50-50 mother and father. It doesn't work like that. What you've got is where every link and strand on the DNA may randomly come from the mother or randomly come from the father. So you could have, where the two meet, you could have a whole chunk that is all father, and then you could have a bit that's mother there, a bit that's father here, or it could be mother, father, all the way down for a while, and then a big chunk of all father. It's incredibly complex. In fact, it's possible to have up to, I think, about almost 80% one parent or the other, which gives rise to an interesting sideline here, that it's possible within, I think it's 8 generations, that, your great, whatever, but 8 generations down, that child, even if it's a direct line descendant, could actually be not related to you genetically in any way. It could actually have none of your DNA, which is an amazing thing, even though it's followed you down. It's just that by chance your DNA has just been gone in the mix. But the whole point is the DNA of the baby not the same as the mother's immune system. Right. So what happens is, the moment it implants, the mother's body, maybe not the mother herself, she won't consciously know perhaps, but the mother's body knows almost immediately that there is a cell, an egg, a viable egg has implanted. And so it doesn't get rejected because the protein, in the DNA, there's parts of the DNA. I'm trying to think of what it's called. Isn't it? It's the protein sequence. It's the alloantigens. So there's the alloantigens in the DNA will code for particular proteins, and you get transcriptase will replicate this down, move it around. And what this does is it downgrades the T cell receptors and it does it for paternal antigens. So what it does is it looks to see what the paternal DNA on the egg is, codes for it, folds, codes. And then basically, it's like it's putting a cloak over the egg. It's a chemical cloak over the egg, so that it hides the egg. It camouflages the egg to look like the mother, so that the rest of the immune system won't attack it. Now, it does this because the mother will become, what's the word I'm looking for here? Tolerant, I suppose. Now, of course, just the sideline, it could possibly happen that, bang, very first time you have, you make it, you get pregnant, bang. Usually when a couple are trying for a baby, it doesn't happen straight away. I mean, sometimes it happens when you don't want it to, one night stands and things like that. But generally, it's a case of over time the mother's body becomes tolerant to the father's semen. And it's, as one of my friends once pointed out, he calls it the final clinching proof that there is a God. Because one of the quickest ways, if you are trying for a baby, ladies, one of the quickest ways of training your body to become tolerant to the partner's semen is ingestion. I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. So that's what happens. So the body will then protect the baby. The mother's body protects the baby because it's basically camouflaged the baby's DNA with T cells, receptor T cells that sit on top of it, and they are the mother's receptor T cells, so the rest of the immune system doesn't see it. The lymphocytes, for example, will just float straight past it. Nothing like that. As long as they're histocompatible, but that's an entirely different thing. I'm not going to get into too complex. Anyway, so that's what happens. So that's what needs to happen in the mother's body. That won't happen in a father's body because the father doesn't have those cells. He doesn't. A man's body cannot code for paternal antigens. And what's worse, you've already given him massive antibody suppressants. The whole body is flooded with depressants. So the man's body can't produce any antigens, and so he certainly can't produce the antigens that are needed to protect the paternal DNA. And so the baby won't grow. The baby will be rejected by the body. And this is just basic biochemistry that anyone can study. 3-year course, off you go. And this doctor says he can beat that. This doctor's full of crap. Anyway, I shall stop there. I mean, it is a load of old rubbish. This guy's full of it. Yeah, I mean, physically he could do it. Physically, we all know that Dr. Frankenstein could sew all the parts of a body together. But we saw the result. The villagers were there with their pitchforks. Isn't going to work. So we'll laugh at him. It's a failure. It's going to fail. And these poor mentally damaged trans men that want to be women are going to pay him lots and lots of money. And good luck. Take the money. Don't blame you. But they'll never be pregnant. They'll never be mothers because they're men. And that's it. You can do what you like. You can throw your immunosuppressants down there. But the very thing you're going down there to put the womb in with is going to stop the body chemistry from protecting the egg. And also, that's if you were even possible to do it, but you won't because men's bodies don't fold that protein. Tough. If you like what you hear and see on the channel, please consider subscribing, leave a like, leave a comment, and until next time, stay safe, stay well, and goodbye.